Recorded. Hey, this is Bill Gross, the LA Probate Expert.com, and I have a friend, Robynne Alexander, who gets involved in real estate and helping people make more money as well as build long-term wealth. And I wanted to share with her some of her programs. So, Robynne, welcome to our call today.
Thank you very much, Bill. It's an honor to be here.
Just give us a quick 30-second of what you do as a quick overview or a quick introduction.
Well, let's see. I am a property redeveloper. And what that means is I take buildings that were once purposed for a particular use, and I convert them into apartments. And I also take, that's known as adaptive reuse. And then I also take apartments that are underperforming and I renovate them and I make them much nicer. And that's called value add.
Value add. And what markets do you do this in?
I do it nationally, but right now I'm up in the New England market and
Nice.
Specializing in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Maine.
Wow, my wife is from Massachusetts, from Boston area. Yeah, well, how nice it is. She is nice, but
Maine is very beautiful.
It is. It gets cold though. I'm a California boy, so we haven't been back since we've been married. So, okay. So that all said, to give us a little background, where'd you grow up, and then how did you get into real estate initially?
Perfect. So I grew up in New England. When I was 27, I moved to San Diego, California, and I lived there for 32 years.
Wow.
And I moved back to New Hampshire in November of 2019 officially, just in time for the winter and just in time for the pandemic.
Now, whoever leaves San Diego to go to the Northeast, what was that about?
You know, I've heard that a lot when I tell people that I lived in San Diego for 32 years, but my entire family was from New England. They're still here, you know, and as we age, you know, we need a little bit more help. And so I'm here to help and support my family, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
You had asked how I got into real estate. I've always been interested in architecture, in real estate. I was in the electrical engineering world for about 22 years. And during that time, I did my very first fix and flip. I did that in 1993 before DIY channel and before all of these programs were radical, right? I used to be a California real estate agent, and then I became a California real estate broker. I purchased a bankrupted Keller Williams office with two other people, and we did that in February of 2007. And by the time I exited in November of 2012, by the way, that was during the worst market, the real estate market ever.
Yeah.
We had taken a bankrupted Keller Williams office and we had converted it. We were profitable for the 21 months prior to my exit. And we had really turned that around, and we had 150 plus agents doing a minimum of 6 transactions a year. So it was a really good learning opportunity for me. I got my CCIM education in 2006. And in 2006, I pretty much went into the commercial sector as far as fixing, flipping, and that type of thing a little bit full time. And I've been also coaching people on how to do what I do and how to get out of corporate America. I've been doing that since 2006 as well.
So let's talk about that, because I regularly come across people who are in corporate America and they want to get out of it. They want to build income. They want to build some wealth. You know, they had a decent income in their corporate job, but not the lifestyle they want to retire on. So what are the basic steps to go from? And oftentimes that corporate job is like handcuffs. Like they're stuck in a job, they're not happy with it. They make decent money, not great money, but they can't get out of it. And I see in them potential to make 3-4 times that. But that's easy for me to say. I'm not the one committed to it. What do you see? How do people make that transition? What's the process look like?
It's a very scary proposition for most people because they do have the golden handcuffs, and the higher up the food chain in corporate America, the more difficult it feels to get out. So what we do is we sit down and we evaluate where they are now, what their end goal would like to be. And that would be, what is the lifestyle that they want to have? What amount of money do they need in order to be able to sustain that lifestyle? And then what we do is we reverse engineer it backwards so that we understand what steps need to be taken. They also want to figure out, what type of entrepreneur do they want to be? What is the sector that they want to get involved in? Many of them like the idea about real estate, but they don't know the first thing about it. They've purchased their principal residence and perhaps even a secondary home, and they have no idea how to do anything beyond that. So I counsel them through, and then I help them with the mindset, with the business skills and relationships that I have with other people to help them be successful.
Now, the process or the tool you have for that is the corporatecrossroads.com, correct?
That is correct. It's called thecorporatecrossroads.com.
Mm-hmm.
And as people start getting bigger in their world, they don't really necessarily understand how to be a CEO or a COO or a CFO. So we also provide those services. They have oftentimes no idea how to manage the technology services. So we provide that for them as well. And we're basically the outsourced C-level for when these people are coming up into being successful. We provide them with the resources that they need. And then we teach them how to hire this particular type of candidate so that they can be successful.
And so is this a one-on-one coaching? Is it a group program? Is it classes? What's the format that somebody gets involved with this goes through?
So generically speaking, we do one-on-one coaching. It's scalable, so they can meet with me once a month, they can meet with me twice a month, or they can meet with me 4 times a month. And then it's scalable so that if they get into a situation where, let's say they're negotiating a contract and they've never done that before and they need extra help, then they would work with me 3 or 4 times a month. And then as they start to feel comfortable with that, they would back off to maybe 1 or 2 times a month.
Got it. And so if they're interested, they would hit the contact us button, and there's a form at the bottom here. I guess they would set up a consult with you, and there's no cost for consult. They would just set up a time, and somehow you reach out to them and set the time for that.
That is correct.
Oh, great. And then you also are involved with raising money, syndication, raising money for some of the real estate investors we talked about. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So when we are buying projects, whether it's an adaptive reuse or whether it's a value add portfolio, we need to come up with financing. So typically we get that from the bank at about 75% of the value of the property. So if we're buying a property for, let's say, $10 million, we're going to be financing somewhere between 7 and 8 million. So we have to come up with the difference for that particular property. So in that example, it would be, we'd have to come up with somewhere between $2 and $3 million. So what we do is we evaluate our portfolio in such a way that we make sure that we build in worst case analytics. So as an example, if we know that the fair market rent for a particular property is $1,650, we're going to put $1,500 or $1,550 into our pro forma. And if our contractor says it's going to take us 6 months to renovate this property, we're going to put a year in there. If the contractor says it's going to cost us, $1.7 million to renovate this portfolio, we're going to put $2.5 million in there. And the reason we do that is because we want to make sure that we can under promise and over deliver. So what we do is we do syndication. It's just a fancy name for crowdfunding. And we get a group of investors together. We will only do deals where we can get a minimum performance to our investors of 25%. They're typically in the deal for between 1 and 2 years, depending on the size of the deal. If it's an adaptive reuse, it's typically going to be 2 years because that's essentially construction for the entire duration until we get it stabilized, meaning we have tenants in there and it's turning cash flow. On the value add opportunities, we're typically going to have our investors in there for 1 year. And syndication is just a fancy way of saying we're going to group money together for a common cause, and the expectation is to have profit. And we do a little booklet that says what our project is, what the returns are going to be, what the risks are, how are we mitigating the risks, how are we going to exit this property, and how are we going to get the investors the amount of returns that we anticipate.
Got it. And somebody interested can go to infiniteequitiesgroup.com And there's a contact form, and there's a phone number, I guess, if they want to call and set up a time, and that's how they would reach you on something like that, right?
Correct.
So I can see how the two work well together, because if you have an executive coming out of a corporate job and maybe they make good money at it, but they don't want to do it anymore for whatever personal reasons or lifestyle reasons or corporate change reasons, and they have a chunk of money, they might want to get involved in, leveraging that money by participating in some of your investment programs. I can see the two of them kind of working well together. Do you see that happening? Do you see your corporate clients, corporate transition clients also involved in your investment programs? Is that why they're both there?
Yes, it works out really well. It's quite a good pairing. One of the things that we help them do is to roll over their existing 401k into a self-directed custodian. And then that way they have checkbook access to their 401k funds in order to be able to invest in these different projects. And it's just a win-win-win for everybody.
And so while they're working, they have the time to really be that involved individually in the investments. Now that they're leaving the corporate environment, they have more time, they can investigate the project more, and they can be more involved in reviewing the materials in depth. And so even more involved investments more appropriate for them at that point, I guess.
A lot of people, they want to get into real estate, but they don't really want to be the ones swinging the hammer. They don't want to be the ones hiring the contractors. They don't want to be the active participant. They want to be a passive investor. And this is a phenomenal way for people who have capital that's not working hard for them. This is a great way for them to get that capital working for them.
Just to give somebody an idea, I know every project's going to be different and your business is going to change, but what's a typical minimum investment? Then what's a most common investment amount on your projects?
So, yeah, that's a really good question, Bill. We have run the business investing a variety of different ways. So sometimes we'll get just an equity partner to help us with that gap funding at the beginning. And the equity partner will certainly get a much bigger percentage of the project than if they were in a syndication subscription. So the syndication typically is going to be on the low side about $50,000, and on the high side, the way the SEC regulation works, if you have somebody that's in the syndication and they have invested the equivalent of 20% or more of the entire capital raised. So let's say, and as an example, we were raising $10 million. If somebody wanted to put $2 million into it, they now own 20% of that entire syndication. I don't allow that to happen. I keep them at 19% or below. And the reason for that is if we ever put debt onto a property, right, and I have a subscriber that has 20% or more interest, right, that particular subscriber has to be vetted by the lending institution. And we, right, don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that's a lot of administrative paperwork. And then the person who's being vetted rightfully wants to ask a lot of details and just creates a lot of overhead on both sides that just make that change the nature of the relationship from syndication to investment partner on both sides. And I think sometimes investors don't understand that door swings both ways.
Well, so it removes them from the passive side and it makes them more active, and that's not what they want. So we cap our investing for our subscribers at 19% of the total pool.
And what's the most common, initial investment? Is it 50,000 or is it a little bit more than that? Or what's
no? Typically, we run somewhere between 150 and 300,000.
And curious, do you have any idea of what percentage you think of the total net worth that represents? Is it 5%, 10%? It's a larger percentage? Is it tipping the toe in at 1%? What do you see as that?
Yeah, so the SEC has regulations on how much they are allowed to invest of their own personal net worth. Mm-hmm. So it is going to be specific based on a case by case basis.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, that's interesting. So I know you're involved with the Real Success Program. That's how we met through Joel Arvis. So how do you fit into that program, and how do you support the students in that program and help them on their path?
Yeah, so Joe is a great guy, and we love working with him. He has access to a lot of students that want to be a passive investor. They don't want to swing the hammer. So I am the preferred partner for them for syndication and equity partnerships. So if they have somebody that wants to be a passive investor and not an active investor, they bring them to me. Joe and I sit down and we meet with each individual person and find out if it's a good fit, because it's not always a good fit. And we want to have a win-win-win, or we won't do it.
And so through the platform, are your projects available? Do you show samples, or just merely, if they're interested, they set an appointment through the portal, and then you take it from there? How do you work?
Yes. So if they're interested, we always have active properties. Our goal is to increase our portfolio by 1,000 doors each year.
Mhm.
And we do that through syndications, through equity partnerships. We will only, when we underwrite our deals, we will only underwrite and move forward on a deal if we have a 25% increase in the performance of the portfolio that we're purchasing. We'll only buy underperforming assets, and we will buy adaptive reuse projects. So in both cases, if we can get a 25% increase in performance, that will increase the value of the property by 50%. So that is our threshold for how we make those decisions. And based on that, it's going to allow us to get a minimum return to our investors.
Well, so I'm sure that then those of you who are interested in who are involved with the Real Success Program, contacting Robynne is through the portal that you can access and find her information. And I think you'll get like kind of a preferred position with Joe, and they'll hand walk you through the process. That's what you're involved with. If you're not involved with Real Success, which I think you might want to get involved with it, the way to get in contact, we showed you infiniteequitiesgroup.com, and there's a contact sheet there with a phone number. If you're a corporate crossroads person, that'd be thecorporatecrossroads.com. There's a phone number as well as a contact sheet at the bottom if you're interested in those services. So pretty easy way to get in touch with you. So I guess just the last question, I'm sure like me, I'm in sales. I'm a real estate broker. I help people who are buying, selling, and also work with real estate agents to increase their business and create passive income for their real estate practice. And I see people who call me all the time and say they want to make a change, they want to make more money, they want to build wealth, and 1 in 10, 1 in 100 actually do what it takes to be successful in the long run. I'm sure the same is true with you, right? People say they want to invest, some do, some don't. What do you see as the defining characteristic difference between those people who think about it and those who actually take the steps and enjoy the success with you?
I've found, Bill, that most of the time, in fact, I think all of the time, it comes down to motivation and what is their big why. Yeah. If they have a why that's defined and they're in touch with it, they're going to take the action that they need to do to achieve that. Yep. And so for me, it's the motivation, it's the mindset. Most of the time they don't take action because they're afraid. Yep. And the reason that I find that they are afraid is because they lack knowledge to make sure that they feel comfortable. So what we like to do is we like to educate people through the process. I do a coach's corner every month, and anybody is welcome to join. And what I do is I will be on air for, 60 to 90 minutes. I typically do 60 minutes of education and then 30 minutes of question and answer. So it makes it really easy for people it's a nice, safe place for people to come and learn, to ask questions, to get educated without feeling any pressure at all. And we will never pressure anybody. We always want to make sure that we hold their hand through whatever the transition is they're going through in terms of becoming an investor or becoming an entrepreneur.
Well, that sounds exciting. Well, I think you're right. I always tell people I can't coach motivation. Either have that or you don't. 90% of transformation is mindset, but you can, I think, stop. You're also busy. If you just stop and think about what your why is and focus on it and imagine what life could be like, you can kind of stoke that fire a bit. And that's what Think and Grow Rich talks about, writing it out and getting that fire burning to take action. So I appreciate, it's the same fundamentals in every aspect of real estate. It gets down to you have to first get your mind right and then learn the process and then work with experts like yourself, and that's the path you want to go on. Well, Robynne, it's been a pleasure talking today. And I spoke the other day on the phone. I said, I just have to share this with the people that I talk to who want to get involved in real estate. I know a number of people on my platform are coming out of corporate, have a 401k or some sort of retirement package that they can convert into something more actively and participate in. And I appreciate you laying out that path. And then we'll put in the show notes on our social media the ways to reach you as well. So I just want to thank you so much for your time today and appreciate having you.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. And yes, you have my permission to give my email address and to give my telephone number if they'd like to. My mission in life is to educate people through whatever it is that they want to achieve. And I'm going to do that any way I can.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.